Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of El Local Podcast 831. I am your host, Eddie Gonzalez, and today we have a teacher, a union president for the Teacher Association here locally in our school district, Brandon Diniz.
What's going on, Eddie?
Hey, what's up?
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for coming on and taking time. I know it's a little bit early in the morning.
Yeah, no, it's perfect. It's perfect. I know we mentioned this before in passing at a board meeting, and I was like, oh, yeah, okay, cool. And then, you persisted, and I was like, okay, let's get it on the calendar then.
Yeah.
So I'm glad we could make it work.
Yeah, no, thanks for sure. For those who don't know, he is also a Dodgers fan.
Yep, just a little bit, lifelong.
Just a little bit, but and I had to wear my colors today to myself. Yeah, dude, Dodgers are on a roll.
They've been on a roll for like the last 13 years, so
Yeah.
It's been a pretty good time to be a Dodgers fan. A
Yeah.
lot of people ask me like, oh, are you from Los Angeles, or how did this happen? And I'm actually from the Central Valley. I'm not from Los Angeles, but my father, he was a Dodger fan. And
Okay.
so he still is a Dodger fan. We would go to games together, watch games together. So for me, it was that bond. And I feel like most kids want to be like their dad, you know, if they've got a good supportive father. So for me, it's just, I almost had no chance. I was born into this.
Yeah, and I mean, out of all teams, though, but I do enjoy that coming close together because of sports, that bonding and all that. But it doesn't matter what team you go for, but as long as you got that bonding. But,
especially for me, I could be a little obnoxious. I like to have fun when I'm at games and talk a little smack. But for me, it's all that love, and it's all being there for the experience. And you never know what you're going to see. And win or lose, it doesn't make us any more or less of a person. We're just there as fans.
Yeah.
So I really love to go. I'm really quick with the shit talk. So I'm like,
you got to be quick.
Yeah, I surprised. They're like, oh man. I'm like, dude, as a Dodger fan growing up in an area of Giants fans, I've had a lot of practice.
Yeah.
So.
There we go. I know because we're kind of out of the playoffs already this year, and you guys are jumping into the wild card round. And I was looking at this division stat that they post on the MLB app, and Dodgers have won the division's last
12 out of the last 13 years.
Yeah.
And the one year they didn't, they won 106 games and finished in second to the Giants.
Yeah.
And then we bounced the Giants from the playoffs.
Yeah,
so
I remember that.
a lot of people talk about, oh, it's the money, it's this, but they're just a well-run organization, and they're what you want as a fan. You want your team to be competitive every single year and give you hope. So I couldn't ask for anything more. But for the people listening or watching, I'm also a Dallas Cowboys fan. So
I did not know
at
that
least
one.
on the other end of it, I just continue to get heartbroken by my football team. So as I've grown up, I've kind of gravitated more to the Dodgers because I know what to expect with them.
Yeah.
The Cowboys, as soon as I get a little bit of hope of like, oh, this is our year, it's all
done.
goes up in smoke.
What was it? Because I'm in my fantasy league, some of my friends they're Cowboy fans. So every year, right before we start the draft or before the season, I send them like that little template that they post on ESPN. What was it? They're eliminated from the playoffs. Yep. Every year. That's the first thing I do, eliminated from the playoffs.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I've seen that on Twitter. Just the team logo and for
eliminated.
Us, yeah.
But no, that's cool. You're a sports guy, so you know a little bit of something about sports and everything. So you say you're from the Central Valley, born and raised out there, but you moved out here.
Yeah.
So kind of give, for those who kind of don't know about your life in the Central Valley, just kind of give us a little bit of rundown on what it's like growing over there, and then kind of moving here to Santa Cruz County.
Yeah, it's hot down there. It's hot in the Central Valley. So for me, growing up in the Central Valley, I grew up in a little town called Atwater, which is right next to Merced, kind of in between Modesto and Fresno.
Yeah.
And so, I was born and raised down there. But we would always come camping at Sunset Beach in Watsonville, like every summer. My father was in the air conditioning business, and so he actually started his own company and went into business for himself.
Nice.
And then we kind of, I would say, entered into that like middle class realm where we were comfortable, but it's not like we had everything we needed and we had to work for it. But camping was like that break we would get from the heat, and we would come to Watsonville, Sunset Beach, go shopping at Don Rafa's, and hit up the taco truck right there, which I think now is like El Volcan or something.
Oh, yeah.
But it was just Watsonville was that place that I had circled on my map of like, this is where I want to be when I grow up. I want to live next to the beach. I want to live next to these people. We'd go to the Strawberry Festival and things like that. So I always felt really at ease and at peace in Watsonville. And as soon as I got my teaching credential and I started applying, I called up this district and was like, yo, I got a job offer in Greenfield. They're going to give me a $5,000 signing bonus, but I want to see if you guys want to give me an interview. And so they interviewed me, hired me, and then I've been here for the last 11 years.
Dang, 11 years.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool and interesting because even as I get older, when I got older, I, start talking to people and everyone that kind of comes in through Watsonville. And I know we have Pajaro Dunes here and we have that camping, sunset and up and down the coast right there. But it's crazy to think how many people from the outside come here just for that same reason, camping for the summer, here for like a weekend. Like I was talking to my friend a couple weeks ago, and they're like, oh yeah, I had family come over and they were like at Pajaro Dunes for 2 weeks, and they love this area. So like it's neat to see, and it kind of makes me feel good that, hey, they know Watsonville. They could go to Santa Cruz, right? Because, but they choose to come to Watsonville in this area right here.
The beaches in Watsonville are better than the beaches in Santa Cruz. I will say that, right? Right now I do live in Santa Cruz, but for me, like Sunset Beach, Palm Beach, there's just so much open beach here in Watsonville. And I know working here, I was always surprised with how many of like my students had never been to the beach. And I'm like, what are you talking about? It's right there.
Yeah.
So getting the chance to take the students during our like 8th grade graduation trip and getting to see them experience the beach. I don't know, man. It's just, I'm not like a surfer bro or anything like that. I'm not in the water every day, but there's just something really peaceful about being there by the ocean, and having that so close to where you live is just a blessing.
Yeah. And I think for me, and because the beaches were great growing up, but there was a point in like the mid, like kind of 2000s where they kind of sucked. I remember that there was like a big homeless population that kind of took over. There were needles. And so it kind of took a hit. But I think within the last like 15 years, they cleaned it up pretty good. I think the city and the county did a good job. And now, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
We've definitely got some stories of camping, and you leave the ice chest out, and then you come up in the morning, and your ice chest is gone. And you're like, where the fuck that? And we even found it once. They stole our ice chest, and then when we finally found it behind some bushes later in the day, and they had stolen all the alcohol out of the ice chest. And there is that, and Santa Cruz, Watsonville definitely has challenges with their homeless. But it's good to see that things have been improving in the last 15 years, because that was the time when I was like a teenager. And you'd see it when you'd come into town, and you're like, it's right in front of you, and certain people have their blinders onto it. Other people are super compassionate and want to help, but it's really nice to be able to enjoy that.
Yeah. And so you came about 11 years ago. So I want to kind of talk about you becoming a teacher.
Yeah.
So what made you want to become a teacher? Out of all things, I'm taking it like at the time. Maybe you had like other dreams and aspirations, right? What did you want to be when you grew up before you decided on becoming a teacher?
I figured out that I wanted to be a teacher pretty early. Like I was in high school when I figured it out. But for me, it was like my father owning an air conditioning business and heating and cooling. And so every summer from when I was like 12 years old until I was 21, 22, I'd be running calls with him. And when I was younger, I was just his gopher. Hey, go for this, go for that. Go get whatever tool he needed. But just being out there in the heat and getting in the attics with him and seeing my dad crawling through basements and just coming out of that basement just soaked with sweat. And he would always tell me, like, I want you to be working inside one of these buildings and not like under it or on top of it. I want you to do something better for yourself and get an education. And he never wanted me to take over the family business. I think there was a part of him that did want that, but he also wanted to see me do something a little better for myself. I was also a terrible student up until about high school age, and it wasn't because I wasn't intelligent. I think I was almost a little bit too intelligent for my own good. So if things were boring or things like that, I would just act out and kind of be that kid who's looking for opportunities to kind of make things go a little haywire. But I had some really good teachers in my day. Like, I know specifically if I had to point to one person who helped, like, shaped me wanting to be a teacher, it'd be my 4th grade teacher, Miss Mitchell. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was Martin Luther King Jr. Day. We had no school. I don't know if you ever had a Super Nintendo, but they had the Super Game Boy that would go into the Super Nintendo.
Yeah,
and I was
those.
playing Pokemon Red, just chilling at my house, like no school, playing Pokemon. And there's a knock on the door, and it's like, who's this? And my mom opens, and it's my 4th grade teacher, Miss Mitchell. And she has my whole spelling book and all the work that I've been doing for the month. And it was all just sloppy, lazy, like that classic kid that's like, I'm just going to check this box, get it done. And I had to, like, from that moment until the spelling book was corrected, the Super Nintendo was gone, and it was like, you're going to catch up on all your work. My parents kind of started riding me a little harder, but she was like, help me see that you can do this. You're being really lazy right now, and that's your choice, but I'm going to hold you accountable because I see something in you more, even though I was a little 4th grader, probably a nightmare. But just having somebody care that much, and at the time it was a big pain in the ass. I was like, but
I'm trying to play Game Boy here.
I'm like, I was in Lavender Town. I'm like almost done with it. So, but yeah, just having those types of people who would influence me. And then as I started to get older, and you think about just how short life is, and you read the history books, and there's a handful of people who get remembered for history, and we're probably not going to be in that group of people. But what we can do is we can give back to the next generation and help them improve their lives so that they can help improve their kids' lives. And I see education as a way to have that trickle down, paying it forward effect to maybe I can be that, Miss Mitchell who has that influence on a kid that it might not happen right then and there. But if there's anything I could teach them that helps them down the road and they remember, oh yeah, Mr. Diniz taught me that, that's like all I can ever ask for.
Yeah. And going back to like your dad, and that's a special kind of parent, because a lot of times you do have those families like, you got to take over that family business, you got to like follow in my footsteps and all that. And I can imagine it was kind of hard for him to kind of like push you in a different direction, right? And because my dad the same way, right? He grew up, my family had a farm business, raspberries, strawberries, and yes, I could have followed it, but he put me in situations to be better, right? And that's what our parents do. They want us to be better than them. And so I think that just takes a very special kind of parent to just put you in a different situation,
Yeah. It's a lot of sacrifice. My dad, I love him so much. I like look at the parents I had, and I realize how fortunate I am. And I see like students and kids who don't have that. But for me, my dad actually, he immigrated to the United States when he was 10 from the Azores, which are islands in the mid-Atlantic that are Portuguese territory. Okay. So he came here, I think he was in like 4th grade or something. And so for him, he grew up working on the dairy in the family business and waking up and feeding cows and then getting into air conditioning. So for him, it was always like manual labor and making that American dream of coming from some random island in the mid-Atlantic. So I'm really fortunate that I had the parents that I did, and I just lucky.
Yeah. And then your teacher, the fact that it's a Martin Luther King holiday, and they show up at your doorstep, that right there, and like you said, they see something in you. That's a special type of teacher.
Yeah, absolutely. She was a really special teacher. I think my sister ended up having her later on down the road. But yeah, just had that teacher to have that vision and see something in me and have that dedication and patience to give up one of her days off to go make a trip to knock on a door and see, okay, am I going to catch this family here? Am I not? But let me try to do something. Yeah. And that's really, really powerful.
Yeah, and I could see why, you decided to be a teacher, right?
Yeah.
And so you decided early on, you take that route. And I'm sure things have changed over the years with the credential program and and going to school for it. But how hard was it, if anything? Or like you said, because you're pretty smart, and so you just kind of cruise through it.
It's almost like one of the reasons why I haven't really continued on my education path, because I know I can get a master's or more if I really just challenge myself. But honestly, so much of what college and school has become are just hoops to jump through. And I felt like the credential program, there's a lot of great work you do. You do your student teaching, you do a partnership, you have a master teacher, you're getting into the classrooms and you're learning, you're taking classes on, you know, the science of reading and all these things that you absolutely need to be a teacher. But then along the way, every step of the way, there's some big assessment. When I was going through the credential program, it was called the TPA. And by the time I was done with my TPA, it was a 46-page document where you're answering the same question over and over and over and over again. So for me, it's just like, it's not an efficient pathway these days. And now we're seeing where it's harder for people to get into education. You don't have the same people coming in as you have coming out. And part of that is because they make you jump through so many hoops. Yeah.
Because I know I've known some friends who became teachers, and they kind of tell me stories about the stress of it, you know. And so I'm thinking, well, it should be easy, right? You're trying to be a teacher, and you know, you're teaching the next generation. It should like be a simple process, but it seems like it's not.
Yeah, there's just so much that teachers take on, from classroom management to all the different subjects that you're teaching to child development. And there's just continuing to be more and more added on to teachers' plates. And then there's like two different paths you can take. You can take the slow path where you go get your education, you get your credential, you do your student teaching, and you jump through all these hoops, and you come out of that a little more prepared because you've got like the book learning part. Or you take the path where, man, we're so desperate for teachers, there's all these waivers people can get where, hey, you can come be a teacher for a year, and all you have to have basically is a bachelor's degree and say, yeah, by the end of the year, I'll look into getting into a credential program. Or then you can be an intern. So you've got these teachers who are just thrown into a classroom on some type of a waiver because we're so desperate for teachers. And then those people really struggle because they don't have any of the book learning. But I don't know, it's just different because some people get in that situation and they're like, they're naturals. They can do
thrive,
this. They thrive. They get the support they need and they stick with it and they become lifelong educators. And some people come out with all the book learning and they're like, wait, this isn't what the book didn't teach me about this. And they get burned out. So there's just so many dynamics with kids that I think you just really have to have like the education, the intelligence, but you need the right temperament and personality. Especially for me, man. I taught middle school and you know what middle school
is something else. You're dealing with hormones. You're dealing with like, you know, just all these changes that they're going through and attitudes. And it's just like, I think it takes a special kind of person to be at that middle school level and then love it. You know, that's a whole other thing. And I've worked with teachers, right? Over the years, so many. And I've seen that where it's like, they just jump into it because, you know, they're going to get a good credential eventually. And they work out, you know, and then there's those ones that are like, oh my gosh, I'm stuck with this person for another year, you know, and then you got those ones that are like, oh, I got the education, went through the process, and I guess, like you said, it depends, right? It just depends on the person, the personality, the environment. It's just so many factors that play into a success of a teacher.
For me, I did not want to be one of those teachers who gets into it and then you're just already looking to climb the ladder. Like, okay, what's next? How am I going to be the vice principal? How am I going to be a principal? How am I going to be a district office administrator? Like those ladder climbers, I good. Like if that's what you're going to do, go ahead and do it. But for me, I just wanted to kind of be my best every day and learn something, take it slow. And then somehow 11 years later, it's like, well, you're the union president now. And I'm like, you guys sure about this? Like you put me as president? What? Like there's still a part of me that's that immature middle school kid that's like, all right, if this is what you want, go ahead.
And so when you first became a teacher, you became a teacher in PVUSD, right? So this was your first.
This is the only district I've ever worked in.
Okay, so you come from the Central Valley. Hey, they give you an interview, you get the job. You're moving to a new place. You're somewhat familiar about it, but then it's just almost like a present you open for the first time on Christmas, right? And so, what was it like early on teaching? And were you straight to middle school?
Yeah, I was straight to middle school, straight to Lakeview. That was a special time in my life because at that time I was in a long distance relationship with a woman who went on to become my wife and then went on to become my ex-wife. But just having that opportunity to like unite, and she was living in Monterey, going to school there. I was in the Central Valley. So for us to get to come together and like have our first place, and I was already living on my own. I wasn't living with my parents when I moved here, but it was like, well, now I'm farther away. I'm in a new spot. We had a spot down on Tuttle. And so Carmona's Barbecue was like my spot when I first got here. I walked to Carmona's, check out things like Ella's, the fairgrounds, just go for walks and runs on the levee, and just like starting to explore the area was really special. And then getting to like I worked at Lakeview. Tuttle was like a mile and a half away. Yeah. So I was like that little corridor of Watsonville was really fun to start to get to know, and then just kind of branch out as I became more established. But there's definitely, I think one of the first days I was here, someone crashed into my car parked on the sidewalk. So I was like, oh man, like I'm sitting in my house and I just hear boom, and I go out and someone just hit my car. That was like, man, is this what Watsonville's like? But it got much better after that. Yeah. I think that was literally like the second day I lived here. So
did they stop by and it's like, hey, sorry?
I heard it. I heard it, and they hit my car, and then my car got pushed into the car in front of it because we were all parked along the curb. And then I got out, and they were kind of stumbling in the roadway, a little confused, and they actually started to walk away, and we're like, let's call the cop, let's figure this out. And so my time in Watsonville got better than that second day.
So. But what a way to kind of introduce you to the area with that, right?
Yeah, it was. But Watsonville is a good place, man. I love the people here. I'm starting to get kind of old enough now where I've had students start to kind of come full circle. We had our union social a couple Fridays ago, and we had a vendor there selling hot dogs, doing catering, and it was actually one of my former wrestlers at Lakeview, and it was his business. Like, I paid him the money. He's got his name on the business, and so that was like the first kind of time, like, oh shit, these kids that I had who were 12 years old, 11 years ago, now they're 22, 23, getting into the community and making it for themselves. Yeah. And that kid in particular was one who kind of reminded me of myself. It was like he was getting D's and C's in middle school. Good kid, funny guy, kind of a little bit of a jerk, but nothing malicious. And so to see him, he's telling me, he got through high school, he ended up enrolling at Cabrillo. This is a side hustle. He got his grades up. But I was just like, wow. It was like that relief, like, oh my God, this is making a difference. So I'm starting to kind of get to that point, which is cool.
Just wait till they start having kids.
Yeah.
It's crazy because, I've been around in the district about 13 years, so probably 2 more than you, but, also coaching football and doing sports. And now, like, these kids that I coached, like, early on in my years, they're starting to have kids. And some of them are like already in middle school. They were young parents, but it's like, dang, dude, like it's starting to get up there, And eventually, like, I'm pretty sure I'm going to coach their kids. And I'm like, oh man, and it's just like that full circle feeling. It's just like, it's something else. And it's like, that's why we do it, right? We love it.
Yeah.
We love it. We love working with kids. We love, setting up that next generation for the future, and hoping that, like I said, we impact them enough to maybe they'll be someone that's going to be remembered in history. You just never know.
Yeah, you never really know. And even if it's not that, as long as you left them in a better situation or a better place, and they can be, that kind of like the types of parents or fathers that I had, and that sounds like you had, of making it the world a better place one generation at a time, and pushing their kids to have it better. And I know with young parents, man, that's a trip when you think about how many kids are having kids and how many students just fall through the cracks and they don't make it. So if we can have an impact on even one, it's going to make the world a better place.
Yeah. So you are the teacher in middle school. You show up, you're falling in love with the place. You're exploring, but you are a special education teacher.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so out of all that, why special education? Aside from being a middle school teacher,
Yeah.
being a middle school teacher, special education teacher, that combination in itself, it takes a whole
It's actually interesting because a lot of people have some really cool story about someone in their family who had special needs, and that's, I don't have a cool story like that. For me, my college, I went to CSU Stanislaus, and their credential program was really solid. You can get a credential there, and they're like nationally accredited, so you can go move to a different state and teach. But they had a dual pathway where I can earn a general ed credential and a special ed credential at the same time. And so I earned a social studies credential because that was my first love, history, politics, that type of stuff. But getting a special ed credential was like the door opener for me, because at that time I graduated in 2008, so I'm probably coming out of college around 2013, 14, looking to get into teaching. And for social studies, there was no jobs. I could like the one job on EdJoin was in Oakdale, California, and I'm like, that is not the place that's circled on my map.
Yeah.
Watsonville is, and the amount of special ed jobs out there was just everywhere. And so that's kind of how I got my foot in the door here. And then special ed is kind of how I got my foot in the door in the world of the union, because it is such a challenging position, and there's just so many different dynamics, and the success of your day is dependent on so many things. Is this student, in a good mood? Did they have breakfast today? Like, are they coming to us in a good place? Do we have our full staff? Like, are people out today? Like, what's going to happen? And I still remember my first day of teaching too. And I'm someone who I run pretty anxious, and I got a lot of anxiety inside me. So I like to have things really scripted. And I went into that first day of teaching with every 3 minutes were scripted out to me. So I had sat down and mastered it all out.
Yeah.
And okay, 3 minutes, we're going to do this. And then 3 minutes later, and that schedule went to shit like 2 minutes into the day of just like, no, this is not how special education works. You cannot come in here and be so rigid. You have to be able to adapt and go with the flow and hit the curveballs. And you see some really fantastic kids coming through special education. I can think of so many students who had so many challenges, but at the end of the day, they were genuine, they cared, they tried their absolute best, and that's all you can ask for, really.
And the thing for special education that I really enjoy, it's tough because, like you said, you have to be flexible. You have to adapt on the go. I mean, not one day is ever the same. And I think that's the one misconception that non-special ed teachers and personnel don't understand, is that today's not going to be the same as tomorrow or yesterday. It's always something's going to play out. And we're always on our toes. But with these kids, and I tell people that, you know what, there's going to be hard times where we're going to struggle. We're going to just want to rip our hairs out sometimes. But there's always that one goal that a kid may have that they reach, or they do something that's like, dude, we've been working on that for months. And that moment, whatever it may be, by even writing their name or even just saying like, I want this, dude, it puts it all like worth it. It's worth it. And I think that that's our high. And we look forward to that.
I mean, especially, I know we shared some time together working in one of the classes for the students with more severe disabilities. And like, that is such a challenge. And that's what you're saying. One period's not going to be the same as the next. And I've had students, throw chairs across the classroom, and you got to evacuate the room. I've had students spit right in my face, and like, you compose yourself, and a lot of people really just don't know what to do in these types of situations, and they don't understand what a consequence is, and they think a consequence always has to be, a disciplinary action, and it's like, no, a consequence is the result of your actions. So if a student wants to go home for the day and they spit on me, and then I send them home for the day and suspend them, the student just got what they want, and now they're more likely to do that again. So you really have to understand like those types of dynamics. And then as you're having these challenging students and you do, like you're saying, you get to see them. So many of their challenges are just rooted in like an inability to communicate. And so they're always trying to tell you something. They're always communicating with their behavior. So when you can give them that tool to communicate either with their words or sign language or something to prevent them getting frustrated, that's when, like you're saying, you see that like, oh yes, like I'm helping this person express themselves, I'm helping this person communicate, I'm helping this person get their needs met in a way where they're more independent and they're less likely to, you know, have an outburst or an episode.
One of the and I'll ask you, what in your time early on, or just kind of like the most consistent, what's been the hardest thing about teaching? And for me, and it's not private, I mean everyone knows that, a lot of the times it's not even the kids. It's not even the kids that we deal with, we work with day in and day out, because like I said, we're trying to teach them, and a lot of that is rooted in not knowing to communicate. And I'll say it, it's the adults. Yeah,
it's a lot. I've taught life skills for the severe students, and I've also taught resource class. So I've got a really good mix of like what that middle school population is like, and yeah, I'd say it's never the students. And even if it is the students, there's something underlying where, you know, it's not just that kid that's bothering you. There's something structurally, or there's something in the system that's flawed. And yeah, a lot of the frustration for me was geared towards the system and being in this class and seeing that the teacher next to me, there's a vacancy there. There's no teacher there. So now I've got to be responsible for both classes. Like, no, that doesn't work. I have the right to say, no, I'm not taking on these students. So that kind of stuff ended up getting me into the union work of just seeing how flawed the system is and how much work gets shifted onto the people who, I call it like the curse of the competent. Like the more competent you are, the better you're doing, the more shit they're going to put on you. And it gets exhausting because there's just so many flaws in the system, and these kids have so many needs that get met, that now that I'm in the work of like the union and I'm not in a classroom right now and I'm dealing with adults who are just being difficult, like I can't take a step back and be like, hold up, you're 12 years old, you haven't had breakfast, you've been eating Takis all day, you're high, I know you just hit the vape pen in the classroom, like I can rationalize in my head why you're acting a fool, and I can just not take that personally and get through my day. When it's an adult, I'm just like, bro, what's your excuse? Like you can't be acting like this. And unfortunately, being in the world of the union, you do encounter some people who made a bad choice. And what I say is, like, we represent someone's rights to due process, not necessarily their actions. And so that's sort of something that I take seriously as being in the union. So
you saw a lot of the injustice and how the system is flawed, and you know, you become so important at work that, you know, oh, this guy's capable of doing this, like no dude, like it's not my responsibility. And it sucks because sometimes like they kind of throw that at you. It's like, oh, so you don't care about the kids?
Oh yeah.
I mean, they don't tell you that directly like that, but like the way they refer, like they communicate, it's like they make it seem like, oh, just because I don't want to do the extra work because you guys couldn't take care of business, you're putting it back on me and trying to reverse psychologize me like that. I don't care about the kids. That sounds like a personal problem to you guys, you know? And so because of those, you get involved, right? And so you're involved in the union, and so talk me through that involvement, because I remember when I first started getting involved with the union myself, right? You go around and you join the union, and you know it's kind of like there, and you're not too familiar with it, and you kind of ask questions here, but then things start happening to you, and you're like, all right, what is the union? How is it helping me? So talk me through that getting involved phase.
For me, it's we have a saying, as like the union is you and I, you know, the union is us. And so I think for me, it was starting to have to experience some of those challenges of, hey, there's no teacher next door. Will you write these kids' IEPs? And me, no, I'm at caseload. I can't write any more IEPs. And, oh, what, you don't care about the kids? Who's going to? For me, it's like I would rather do a good job with the students that I have and the job that I have than have to pick up all this extra work that I'm going to end up doing a half-ass job because I just don't have the time to do it. So for me, it started off with like protecting my workload and the workloads of the people in the special ed department. I started off as like a site rep at Lakeview. I want to say I was in my second year. I didn't even have tenure yet, but I just wanted to be someone who would help because we all have complaints. And sometimes when you're in union leadership it's just like you just get complaint after complaint. But it's like, how can we turn those complaints into commitments? And what can we do in talking with each other to find out like an action that we can take or a stand that we can take where we're like, for me, it was not agreeing to write an IEP if that student's not on my caseload. If I'm not seeing that student, if I'm not interacting with that student, my commitment is I'm going to say, no, I'm not doing that. You find somebody else to do it because it's my right. And as I started to kind of assert that right, the teacher next to you was like, hey, I lost my lunch the other day because the principal asked me to do this or that. And, no, that's you get your lunch back. And just finding all these kind of little things where it's not like it's super malicious. Our principals aren't like, how can I screw these teachers over today? But it's like, if you don't assert your rights and fight to protect those, they're going to get taken advantage of and you're going to have more and more work put on you. So for me, it was just started off at that site level, talking with the teachers at my site and trying to be someone who'd be more solutions oriented and not be one of like those people who just constantly complain. Yeah. We all know who they are.
So with being a site reps year 2, am I correct to say that was kind of scary only because you're not tenured year yet? And so that's a little bit different with like a classified. I think for us, we have like 160 days when we first get hired. After that, we pass probation. Yeah. And so I guess you could say we can start making noise, With teachers, it's like, unless you're tenured, and sometimes that doesn't happen for a while, they kind of can get rid of you. Yeah. And then when they start to find out, oh, this person's involved with the union, they kind of mess with you in a way. Yeah. Not necessarily always like, the principal maybe, but someone up there, starts kind of like toying around and making it difficult for you. And did you face a lot of stuff like kind of like, hey, we might terminate you or just kind of these things because you started getting involved?
A little bit later on, not when I still like was going to earn tenure. I kind of was like, oh man, you ask and you shall receive. I started to see some of those things, but like my first year as site rep, it was stressful and a little bit scary. But for me, it's like I was able to look at the landscape and be like, I have a special ed credential. You are not gonna let me go unless I am just out here acting a fool because there's a vacancy in the class next to me. Like I am the one teacher for these 2 programs. You're not going to get rid of me. And early on and still to this day, like I do value solutions and being pragmatic. And I had a really good relationship with my administrators. Juan Alcantar, man, he was like, he was my guy. We were both Dodger fans. And so for me, it was just like, how can I help solve issues and not be as much of that union person who's going to be butting heads. But early on, it was like my way to kind of address my anxiety and that fear was like, I'm just going to be super solutions oriented. I'm going to be as communicative as I can, try to give people heads up and bring them along and kind of not go down that union route of bumping heads. But later on, as I started to get, go from being a site rep to, okay, well, now I'm the vice president of special education for our union. So I'm on our executive council. And I still remember our old superintendent, Michelle Rodriguez, would go do these tours where she would visit each school and she would post it on her Twitter. And it would be like, I can't remember, Michelle on the move is what she called it. And I went to a board meeting and I just like ripped into the whole board. And I'm really good with my words.
Yeah, I think everyone knows that.
And so I ripped into the board and I called it, her dog and pony show. And I was like, if you really cared, you would be at Lakeview and da-da-da-da. And the next day, she shows up in my class at Lakeview, and it's just like, you could hear a pin drop. Because I was also one of those teachers, especially at that time in resource, where I might have been a little more loose with some of the rules than some of my colleagues. Like if a student wanted to wear a hood in my class, I'm not going to stop the whole class because you got your sweater hood on.
Yeah.
Like, we're just going to keep it moving. And I remember her coming up to a kid who had his hood on. He had headphones on. And me and him, we had that, like, you're cool, man. You're on top of your grades. Like, you got that privilege.
Yeah.
And I remember her going up to him and, like, asking him to take his hood down and take his headphones out. And, like, what are you working on? What's the objective for the day? What's your, what are you trying, and, like, getting all in the academic world. And sometimes resource class isn't always about that. It's letting a kid learn, giving them some independence. If you're hitting your benchmarks, you're going to get that reinforcer. I would have like raffles, and my students would earn privileges. So that was his privilege. And when she came to do that, he's like looking at me like, are you gonna? And I'm like, that's the superintendent, bud. And so we got through it, and the kids, we talked about it afterwards. But yeah, I've had some moments where, you mess around and you find out.
Right.
So,
yeah. Oh, wow. Yeah. Like you said, you're good with your words. And I think that anyone can agree that hearing you speak at these board meetings, and I like what you said, you're trying to find a solution before you throw on that union hat. Right. And I think that's super important. And not a lot of adults can like comprehend that.
Yeah.
Right. It's a give and take. It's a conversation. Let's find the solution, because there's ways. There's ways to get around things. There's ways to do things. Just people are just not, again, you're dealing with adults. A kid, you could talk to them and explain to them, and eventually they'll get it, and they'll go with the flow.
Yeah. And if they don't, they're 12 and they're high.
They'll
come around.
They'll come around. But an adult, you're sober, and you're still, like, being a butt. Sorry to say, but it's like, man, it's hard. How do you, there's this training that they gave us. It's called safety care training.
Oh yeah, I've done safety care training.
And so, it's so funny because a lot of those trainings is obviously for the kids and de-escalation, but you ever catch yourself kind of just using that on an adult?
Oh yeah.
And it's like, it's funny because they look at you like, what are you doing? But it's like, hey, I'm just, how do you feel? Like, you reinforce what they're saying. And it's just like, and it works, But how do you deal with adults like that? It's like,
it's really tough. I've been through some trainings as well and organizing. And so there are certain times in conversations where I'm not even aware that I am kind of using those strategies of like, okay, how am I going to turn your complaint into a commitment? And I hear that you're upset. Let me affirm that. Let me like make you feel heard. Let me talk you through this. And then how can we together problem solve where there's a little bit of agitation going on where I'm like, yeah, that is unfair. I can't believe that. Why do you think that is? And just trying to lead people through a thought process to see that like apathy and that whole concept of like, oh, people are just too lazy. They're too busy. Like the reason is because our employers are putting so much stuff on us. And when we can have a conversation and start to see where all that stuff is coming from and what we can actually together in discussion make a commitment to do to influence that in the way we want. Like for me, it does get frustrating when there's just so many complaints, but I just kind of try to in my head, like, we're going to go through this process. I'm going to see if I can get a commitment out of this because your complaints are valid most of the time, but it can definitely be frustrating. So for me, I like to have my thoughts sorted out. Usually before a board meeting, like I've already written down my comments or I've typed them out somewhere. I take that hour before the board meeting. And if it's downtown at the city hall, I'm going to be across the street at the Slice Project, just quietly having some pizza, kind of collecting myself. Because our board meetings have just turned into an absolute circus. Like, there's no reason we should be there until 2 a.m.
Oh, I know.
So, like, for me, when I know I'm getting into a situation like that, I'm going to be in the long haul, I have to take care of myself. I'll take a break some days and I'll go to the beach. I'll go down to Palm Beach before a board meeting, spend an hour there, come back, spend an hour with some pizza, collecting my thoughts so that I know I'm in the right mindset because there's so much just like when you're dealing with people, sometimes there's so many things like gaslighting that happen where you just want to call that out right there. And there's so much inside you that's like bubbling and you're like, man, but you have to have that discipline to just breathe, almost like when you're in the classroom, just breathe, like refocus, recenter, and sort of address what's behind their words and not just the words themselves.
Yeah, kind of like taking those things that we teach our own kids, right?
Yeah.
And I agree. I mean, one of my biggest issues over the last couple of years with just in general, especially with educators, it's like, hey, let's spend 8 hours a day teaching these kids, hey, this is how you communicate. Hey, these are how you should feel, all those skills that we're told to teach. And we're, if we're not teaching them right, all this stuff. And then we come to a situation, it's like, wait a second. 12 hours ago, 24 hours ago, you told me that I got to teach the kid how to do this, but yet we're not doing this.
Yeah.
So of course it's going to look bad.
Yeah.
And so I think, if we're going to hold a standard to our kids in the district or just in general, we need to also meet that standard too.
Yep, we do. We absolutely do. We have to model that standard. We have to be consistent. And I think what's most important is we just have to be real with them and let them know, like, if you do get a little too frustrated or you do make a mistake, like, own that. Because that's what's then going to help teach them that nobody's perfect. And getting into education, people have this concept or this idea of what a teacher should be. And we should all be up here and we should all have this certain standard. But we're all different, and we're not all going to land in that same spot. So it's going to look different from teacher to teacher. But at the end of the day, like, we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard and be accountable. And it's frustrating when sometimes that doesn't happen. And so then my role is like helping people think through and get and improve is when I'm hearing those, oh man, this kid called me bro, and then blah, blah, blah. I'm like, great, man. He called you bro. Like, that's actually a good thing. Why are you getting frustrated? And so I always just try to encourage people to, like, when you're in that moment and you have a student who's being really frustrated and you have that opportunity to kind of start losing yourself, just take a deep breath, look in your classroom. There's going to be a kid there who's on task, who's doing what they need to be doing. That's where your attention in that moment should go, because we can't be getting into power struggles with these kids, because that consequence is that reinforcer that, okay, if I want to get a rise out of you, or if I want to get it out of something, we got to be smarter than that. And sometimes we're not, but that's where we really just need to get better and take those opportunities to model that growth and reflection, that if we make a mistake, we're going to grow from that. And union leadership, there's a lot of different demands and people who think that, oh, when are we going to go on strike? What about this? And what about that? And you're just like,
can't just jump the gun right away.
You can't just jump the gun. We have to work together. We have to realize that we're all in this for the kids. And if we're going to have to organize and mobilize and resist, like, there are steps that need to be taken. And if folks, aren't even doing the basics, it's going to be a long way to get there.
So you were the vice president for a while. So your site rep, and then you kind of start getting more into it. And you just became the union president a year ago?
My journey got really accelerated there because I was in the classroom. So I spent 8 years at Lakeview, and then I got pulled for a year out of the classroom to be our grievance officer. And I was on the negotiations team. We just negotiated some language. So grievance officer's role is to, like, enforce the contract. And when there's misinterpretations or violations, like, you go and you work through with the district, and we have a formal process. So I was grievance officer for a year. And then the next year, I was our negotiations chair. And in March of that year, our president got pulled by the CFT to go on release to work for them. So it was like, I had been elected as our next president in February. Nellie, she's great. She's been, like, grooming me for this for the last 2 years. And so every year from, like, that first year in grievance officer, she's like, oh, next year when you're president. I'm like, Nellie, I'm not going to be president next year. I'm totally not ready. And then that year's negotiations chair, it was like, oh yeah, next year when you're president. And I'm like, stop it. And then it somehow turned into, like, March, I'm president. And we're going through layoffs, and it's just like, oh my God, what do I even do?
0 to 100, like that.
Yeah, it was 0 to 100. It was not even just like, oh, well, you're president now, and you've got, the summer to get through it. It's like, I remember that day actually because we just came back from our CFT convention in San Diego, and something happened in San Diego where I like scratched my eye, or it wasn't pink eye, but it looked nasty. My eye was all red and fucked, so I couldn't like see. So I took a day to go to the eye doctor, and it was like a random Tuesday. And then Nelly calls me and she's like, yo, we need to talk right now. And I'm like, what's going on? I can't see right now. And she's like, the CFT is going to pull me, and so I'm going to go work for them starting next week, and you're going to be the president, and we have a meeting in our office right now. Can you get here? And I'm like, I can't even drive. Like, I Ubered to work that day to get through that meeting and just start damage control and talking and being like, I was so anxious and nervous about that. Like, I thought I was going to be president in July, not right now. So that was really intimidating.
Yeah, no, I bet. I mean, just, that's crazy. That's crazy. You took over right away, and I mean, I guess you kind of knew how things ran a little bit, right? Because Nelly was kind of teaching you and coaching you, but just like a random day and like, hey, you're the guy.
Yep, and we're going through layoffs, and so but I was really fortunate that Nelly did invest a lot of time and energy in me, and I did go through, site rep and all that. So it's like I'm ready for it, but it's one of those things where you never really feel ready. And even just from going to so many board meetings and speaking, I'm trying to learn that I just really need to be true to myself. But that's difficult when your words are reflective of your union. So if I say something at a board meeting, every board meeting, I get people who reach out to me of, oh man, I love what you said. That was so great. Or, man, I didn't agree with the way you said that. Why are you being so confrontational? Or, oh, why didn't you hit them harder? Or why didn't you do this? Or why didn't you? So it's all this like second guessing from the outside or this encouragement. So it's like, if you read too much into the encouragement piece and you're thinking, oh man, I'm just the best, I'm doing this best job, or you can read too much into the critical piece and get so, just doubting yourself. So I really try to have that balance of staying true to myself, but also being aware that I can't just go out there and say whatever I'm thinking. I have to be engaging with our members. I have to make sure that my words and actions are something that are reflective of our values and can move us in a positive direction where we can actually solve our problems and not just continue to dig our heels in and get into our corners and fight.
Yeah, I think that's very hard, that things get blended, right? It's like you can't be not that you can't be yourself, like you said, but like you have to like watch what you say, because sometimes you want to say something like, dang, you piece of work, but you can't say something like that because like you're the president now. So it's like your worlds are blended together, and so I myself too, like being involved with union work, like I see things and I feel things, and it's like, well, I can't say that because it's going to be taken the wrong way, even though it may be true, I have to hold my tongue and I gotta be cordial and find a different way of approaching.
Especially when they give you, 60 seconds to make a comment in a board meeting that's going to go on until 2 a.m. Right. There's that feeling that like, oh man, if I say this. And so we do have to be careful, but we also just then got to find the other avenues to push for change and demand meetings with, HR, the superintendent, meetings with our membership, and bring each other along because, our comments, sometimes they're going to get taken out of context, but we also need to back those comments with the work and the organizing. And it's all fun and games to go out to a rally and have some pizza and hold a sign for an hour, but when you're doing that week after week and you're constantly in meetings trying to negotiate and make change, and I try to check in with our board members but before meetings, so like my schedule sometimes is just so packed, and there is that voice in the back of your head when you're talking to someone one-on-one like this, or if it's a board member of like, am I going to say something that then they're going to jump on and be like, oh, look at this. And it's just like, we're all just people trying to do our best. And all we can be is true to ourselves. So.
Yeah. I think that's crazy that, and like I said, I thank you for spending this time here with me to get even talking, because, your schedule is packed, during the week. And I got dragged you out on a Saturday morning. But what I want to say, and I think it's pretty neat, I wish, my union would do that, but, for whatever reasons that you guys as a teacher union, the PVFT, right?
PVFT, yeah, Pajaro Valley Federation of Teachers.
You guys get release time. So there's 3 of you guys, I think that
yeah,
you guys get released from work.
We purchased that release time from the district using our union dues, and so they're also, the CFT has some grants that we can apply for as well. So we're constantly, and now that I'm president and I'm seeing this end of the union, I'm like, oh shit, this is a business. We've got bills to pay, rent to pay, and all this. I'm like, man, sometimes if I have a question with my taxes, I might still call my mom to this day, So there's a little bit of me that's like, oh man, there's all this intimidating side to it. But then there's also that, okay, it's not just me. Like we collect dues from our members. Part of those dues go back to pay the CFT, our per capitas, so we can remain as a charter. But then with what's left, that's what forms our budget. And in the last year, it was myself and Nelly who were on full-time release. But this year, I've got myself, our grievance officer, our negotiations chair, and our membership VP on release. But they're all, like, 2 of them are on a 60% release, so they're still at the school 40% of the day, and 1 of them is on a 50% release. So I'm the one who's there every single day, and then throughout the week, we're kind of rotating and tag teaming, and my hope is that it gets more people involved so that everything isn't just resting on the president's shoulders, because I've seen previous presidents and what a toll this job takes on you and how busy you are and just how much stress there is when you feel like everything for your whole union is on your shoulders. Yeah. And I know, like, I'm not strong enough for that. I know I am, but I'm like,
you can only do so much.
Yeah, I'm like, there's a better way. Yeah. So really just trying to bring people along. We've been super busy. This last week, we pulled 25 of our reps on Wednesday. We pulled 20 of our reps on Tuesday, and we did a site rep training where we had the CFT come and, like, here's your legal rights. So just this year alone, we've trained over 50 of our site reps in their legal rights and responsibilities, union actions. So I'm hoping that we're able to organize more from that ground level and empower people, kind of like the whole teach a man to fish concept of, like, teaching our site reps and our members how to advocate, what their rights are. So they're getting that stuff started at their school sites, and the union is coming in to support that work, and there's a service model of union organizing, and there's the organizing model. And the service model is when someone from the union flies in on their cape and they solve the problem. And the organizing model is like the people at that site are organizing to solve the problem, and they're communicating with, president leadership, but it's a lot more shared process. And I'm trying to take us in that direction. But it's tough when everybody has different ideas and opinions. There are times where you just got to be like, look, I got half of you who feel this way, half of you who feel this way. I'm the president. I'm gonna make the call. Yeah. And
just making that call based on what the best overall solution is for the chapter, the union, right? Yeah. And that's hard. Yeah. I can imagine. You wake up because obviously your days are different now. You don't wake up and I'm going to school. I'm going to go work with kids. Like, you wake up, man, I got a meeting in half an hour. I got to go deal with adults, and I got to go to meetings in the district, and man, it's just the pressure that I'm sure you feel, and man, I bet you miss the kids.
I do. There are so many days, man, where it's just like, I wish I was just in a classroom right now. Like, I'll take the 12-year-old who's hitting blinkers in the bathroom. I remember one of my students saying, like, oh, so-and-so's hitting a blinker in the bathroom. And I'm like, what's that mean? And he's like, oh, that's when you hit the vape pen until it blinks. And I'm like, they do that. I'm like, okay. So, like, sometimes you just miss that. And not that miss kids get high at school, but you miss those interactions and the genuineness, and sometimes how dumb these kids can be, how smart they can be, how much you learn from them, how much they learn from you. And even in those frustrating moments, seeing them have the opportunity to grow. I think a lot of times people forget that, like, this day that we're in right now, or this lesson we're teaching, it's not the most important thing in the world. It's going to move on. And education, I feel like you need to know what you need to know when you need to know
Yeah.
it. And you need to show that you know it, and then you can move on to the next thing. So I think that if more people had the ability to just take that step back and realize that, you know, my math lesson isn't the most important thing to this kid right now. They're trying to communicate something to me with their behavior. I've got 35 other kids though right now. I can't really invest this time to figure out what is at the core issue for this kid. So is there a counselor I can refer him to? Is there a campus security who he's got a relationship with? How in that moment can I get this kid some support so then I can get back to teaching the lesson to the other 34 kids? Like, I do miss that. I miss the kids who are headaches. I miss the A+ students. But how I kind of reconcile all that in my head is trying to think about it as having the trickle-down effect that I had when I was in the classroom. If I can make a difference for this student, but now it's turned into if I can make a difference for this teacher and I can empower them to do a better job or have their rights respected so they can do a better job, that means they're going to now do a better job for all their students.
Yeah.
And so I may not have the opportunity to interact with individual students as often, but through hopefully improving the district and improving our practices, now I'm like having that further reach.
And with this episode, I think it's great that people get to see a different side, not just to you as a teacher, as an individual, but also just bring a different type of light to the PVFT and kind of just everything that goes into it, right? And I think one of the hardest things to maybe to deal with is the misconception of information. And what I mean by that is that people think they know, right? People think they know that, oh, I know what he's going through. I know what they're trying to do and everything. And a lot of the times, one thing that I have noticed in the last couple of years, and I'm sure you've seen it, is just like the not enough information that we receive to make decisions to why is it that we're doing what we're doing? Why is it that we're saying these things in a room full of board members and everything? And so what I'm trying to say is that how do you explain to people or let people know, like, hey, this is what's happening without giving away too much of what's happening? Because there's a lot of like laws that protect, private information. But it's just like, also, people think that we're dumb and that we don't know what we're talking about, or that we, it's not that we're dumb or we don't know what we're talking about, but not everyone's looking at this entire bottle and all its entirety. We're just looking at one side, right? And so how do you talk to people about, like, dude, like, there's not all that information out there?
Yeah, it's a challenge, like, especially just with social media, disinformation, misinformation, how people are in their, political camps where they've already got their mind made up about whatever issue. But for us, it's having to like fight battles on multiple fronts and also really educate ourselves of what the actual facts are. Because like school districts, they have public information officers and they're sending out messages every Friday that when you read those messages, you're like, oh my God, this is like the best place ever. But then when you're there in those classrooms, you're like, bro, our whole school didn't have power all of this last week. Yeah. And that's not even mentioned in your Friday story. So for me, it's like a part of throughout my days, I'm on the phone, like I'll speak to local journalists. I've been on KSBW. Our executive council has written an op-ed that got published in Lookout. So we're constantly, how do we confront this in like the media space? How do we confront this with just our internal communication and our members? How do we present this to the board? It takes a lot of work on the back end. So when people hear us up there talking and they're like, oh, this Brandon guy, what is he talking about? He doesn't know anything. They don't necessarily understand how much research and time we've spent to get to that point, that it can be frustrating to just be dismissed by someone who goes up there and is like, well, I didn't even read this budget, and then they go off on like, the teachers are making too much money. And you're like, bro, I read the budget actually, and I know where the reserves are, and I've met with our researchers from the CFT who've done a deep dive. So it's all about almost like just doing your homework and being prepared, but it does get exhausting.
Yeah, because there's been a lot of times where there's information that that should be public, right? Because it benefits the students, the staff, the community, and a lot of it's being withheld, and decisions are being made without the full information, and then we get mad, and it's just like, well, it's not our fault. We're trying to push for it.
Yeah.
You got to look at the top, because why they're withholding information, it's on them, not us.
Yeah.
And so I think that is one of the hardest things that we face in union work, is trying to get the truth out, the right information out. Because someone had told me one time, like, well, we made a decision, and we made a decision based on what information we had. But after the decision, we got more information. And it's like, well, our decision could have been made differently if we had this extra information that we didn't have at the time.
Yeah.
And I think that's what people, I think, in the community should know, that, hey, man, we got to push, because sometimes it's like you're being fed crumbs, and you're not getting the entire piece of toast that you should deserve.
And they're not gonna give you that entire piece of toast either, unless you're working for it and agitating for it and finding the facts and holding them accountable. And for a lot of people, that's intimidating to speak truth to power. But for me, like, even growing up as a youngster, like, I was always really good with my words. I love to argue. Like, if I had, my dream job would be to be an attorney who works with teachers unions. Like, that would be my dream goal. So I've always just been that type who's looking for that. Okay, I'm going to call you out on that because it's not fair. It's not right. Not everybody has that. But I know I definitely do.
Yeah. What was I gonna say? Oh man, I just drew a blank. Would you say? And I had this conversation with my buddy, because he was he was an old president for his union, one of the chapters out here. I think it was like the transportation chapter, but it's hard to say because you don't want to mix it, but union work is kind of like political now. It's politics, and it should. I feel like it shouldn't be that, but it is. And can you speak on, like, just your take on that?
Yeah, it's pretty intense at times. Like, I don't view myself as like a politician, but like, I know at the end of the day, if I'm meeting with different groups of people and trying to work towards shared outcomes and solutions, I'm in a position where I'm elected into this position. I had to get voted into this position. So it's kind of like one of those things where if it walks like a duck, sounds like a duck, I'm like, that sounds like a politician, you know? And so that's frustrating for me, because I've always considered myself really pragmatic and sort of in the middle of the road, and I like to take my time to make decisions and see like where the opinion is. I'm sort of a utilitarian, where I think that the things that are good for the most people should be done, and sometimes that can come at a consequence for an individual person. So I kind of got a philosophy that governs me. But at least for the work of unions becoming political is what I tell new hires who are like, oh, the union is too political. But like, we are funded through the political process. We are funded through government funded, like, tax dollars. That money is then distributed to people who are elected into the school board, who hire the CBO and the superintendent. So like, it's impossible to separate out at least school board and union work from politics. We do have a specific wing in our union, and we have a committee on political education that people can volunteer to donate to. And that is where, like, your city council races, your board of trustees, we have a process where we endorse candidates who go through that process. They participate in our forum. They do our questionnaire. So we try to have like that part of the open politics, be transparent, and anybody who donates to COPE can contribute to that. But just the way of the world right now is really intense, and it's hard because if you say one thing on one side, people are going to grill you on the other side, and things are just so divisive. And I know recently we had a board meeting, and it was the same day that Charlie Kirk was assassinated, and that was the same day that there was a school shooting. So you get these camps of people who are like, oh, well, you know, we're focusing on Charlie Kirk being assassinated, but what about the school shooting? We have people, you know, school shootings, we need more guns and all that. So it gets so political. And in the immediate aftermath of that assassination, you had people like, it's a radical leftist, or it's this, you see his dad did vote for Trump. And it's like, none of that matters. At the end of the day, it was one person who fucking went crazy, made a choice to go out and get a gun that's so easy to access, and that person just did. And that could really be anybody in this society with how scary things are. So like I try not to focus on the left and the right of like the individual actions of people and then the collective power that we have, because I fundamentally believe that we have so much more in common than we have apart. And it's so easy to find those things. If you're a Giants fan, I'm a Dodgers fan, we could talk about that and disagree for hours and hours and hours. Forever. Yeah, forever. We can find those things to just disagree on. But like those are so much fewer than the things that we actually agree on. But we don't spend as much time talking about those things. And so, but I fundamentally believe that we have more in common than we have apart, no matter who you are, what race, religion, wealthy, poor. And we need to come together and realize that, you know, we are being controlled by the media, by the government, by big money, and these corporations that don't care about us. And I tell our members when I have to do my union pitch to get someone to join, if like, well, why should I join the union? The union's political, yada, yada. The joining a union is the only like organization that you can join and become a member of that cares about your salary and your health and welfare. And we have memberships to the gym that we don't go to Hulu, to Disney Plus, to all these different things where we spend our money, and none of them care about our salary and our benefits. But the union does, and by being a union member, you can actually shape the policy of the union and participate and be active in that versus being that passive union member. Oh, what's the union do for me? Like, what are we all doing for each other? Bud?
I think that's the one thing that people I get all the time. It's like, well, the union didn't do this for me. The union didn't do that. Like, what has it done for me lately? It's like, wait a second. It's us, you know. And one of my favorite, and it makes sense to me, but maybe it makes sense to you and everyone else. Union is an us, right? And I go back to the scene in Thor, Ragnarok, when, you know, they blow up, you know, Asgard, and then it's like, oh, well, we have no place. We don't like Asgard is not a place. It's a us, right? And that same concept, union is not a person, it's not a place, it's us, and it's what we put in is what we get back. And so I tell people that a lot of the times, like, we got, you know, you want change, you got to be the change, you know, you want action, you got to be that action. You know, you can't just rely on the board to represent, hey, if we're gonna be out there before a board meeting, you know, downtown holding signs, it can't just be a few of us, it's gonna be all of us, you know, because that's where we're stronger stronger all together at once. So
absolutely I can think of all, because I grew up playing sports as well. I wrestled, I played football, and so I had some great influences. And I remember like one of the sayings is like, when you point a finger at someone, you've got three more pointing back at you. And so I kind of have those little things that I'll say to people that maybe my coach said to me, like you're saying, you know, the union is all of us. It's not just what are you doing, it's what are we doing together, and I'm going to be here to help you do that. But if you're not going to take that first step with me, I can't do it for you. And as a union president, I definitely get sometimes where people are like, well, I'd like to know why my union president isn't doing this, or my union, Like, because if you approach me like that, we're not going to get far at all, because I don't like being told what to do ever. Yeah. But it's just like, what are we going to do together? Yeah. Just because I'm in a position of union leadership doesn't mean that I'm your person to fit to boss around, or, oh, hey, I need you to fly in on your cape. Like, hold up, let me make some calls to the people at your site. Let me talk to your site rep. Let me talk to your department chair. Let's get together and talk about this so that we're all coming together and supporting you, supporting each other, and it not just be this, oh my God, here, let's hit the bat signal and hit right the away. Union president's going to come in. That's not an effective union. That's a service model, and we need to get to the organizing model where instead of having the same 10 people show up at a rally, those 10 people bring a person who brings and just kind of snowball it.
Yeah, like you said early on, there's a process. Yeah, there's a process to everything, and I'm sure, like we've been talking about, it gets stressful. It gets, you have your moments, and you got to do some self-care, especially, so when you're not, Mr. Union President coming in, swooping in, how do you take care of yourself? You say you go to the beach, grab yourself some slice, you're kind of de-escalate yourself a little bit. Go to, follow the Dodgers, What other kind of things do you do to kind of self-care and just take care of yourself before you kind of...
For me, I have to be intentional about it. Like, if I don't intentionally carve out the space to take care of myself, I'm not going to do it. And depending on how I'm feeling or what type of mood I'm in, I have a few different strategies. For a while, it was just, I still love to play video games. I haven't played video games in the last month or so because it's been busy, but like playing video games in the night and just checking out, that's one thing I'll do. I've been sober from alcohol for the last about 18 months now. So getting into this position, I made a conscious choice to be like, I'm going to just exercise control and hold myself accountable. It's not like, I was falling all over the place, but I definitely, it's really easy for me to get a 6-pack and be like, oh, let's just drink one. And then be like, well, I got the other ones here. Yeah. So let's just kind of keep. So for me, getting into this work was like, all right, we're going to need to be really intentional and carve out some self-control. There's, other herbal supplements that'll help keep people balanced when you're taking your walk to the beach. But I just try to be really intentional. And if I ever am in a really stressful spot, or I'm feeling really anxious and like, man, I'm just a piece of shit. Like, what's wrong with me? I have a candle that I'll burn, and it has a picture of the devil on it. And so I'll burn my devil candle, and I'll read poetry, and I'll just sit with all those thoughts and try to embrace them and find, like, why am I thinking this about myself? And just kind of take myself through a process of burning that candle, sitting with the thoughts, reading some poetry, writing what comes to mind, and also just music. I love music. I grew up, like, System of a Down's my favorite band. Oh, yeah. Korn, like, stuff like that. I actually just saw System in Chicago for Labor Day weekend. It was, like, bucket list status. So just a lot of different things. It's never one thing, but I have to be intentional about it, because if I don't, I'll go through a day where I'll look at my step counter and I'm like, it's 10 o'clock. I've taken 3,000 steps. I've eaten lunch, and that's it. Like, I have to be super on top of myself. Otherwise, I kind of fall by the wayside. Yeah. Summer breaks, as educators, I don't teach summer school. I give myself that time, and I've found it actually to be a really challenging time of the year for me, because the first couple weeks it's like, all right, summer break. And then when I don't have that routine and that structure, I'm like, what am I doing with myself? Yeah. So I have to be intentional about, like, carving out those spaces. Yeah. No,
I get that for sure. How was that System of a Down? Because I feel like they're just coming back. Like, they've always been around, but I think they're like, there's something about, like, all these old bands we grew up listening to. Like, they're just kind of making a comeback right now.
Yeah, I hope they make a new album, because they were my favorite band growing up, and even I honestly believe that they shaped me into the person that I am, with just politics and union work and all the shit that they'd call out in their music from the Armenian genocide, and just how charged their music was. Like, I gravitated to that so much. Like, all these songs about, making money, selling drugs and all that, like, but this stuff here that's calling out real world issues, like, that was awesome. I saw them last year in San Francisco, at Golden Gate Park, and they just kind of, that moment became like, whenever they're touring, I'm gonna try to see them.
Yeah.
Because they haven't made a new album since 2005, but I feel like I'm like holding out hope because they just toured South America. They toured North America. They only did 6 shows, so that was why I'm like, I'm getting myself a ticket. I'm going to Chicago. I caught the System show, a Cubs game, a White Sox game, but now they're gonna go tour over in Europe. So I'm like, is this you guys becoming friends again and making a new album, please?
What was it? I saw one of their concerts in South America. Oh my gosh, what was it? Brazil?
Yeah.
And it was just like at least like a couple of acres of just people just mobbing it
like
and just
flames and mosh pits
Oh
everywhere.
my gosh.
I did get into the pit in Chicago
towards
the end. I did get into the pit and ran around and slam bodies and stuff like that, and it's so fun. I was dead by the end of that show.
I don't know if I could ever do that. Like I've seen it, and my brothers they used to go to shows here in town. And they would tell me, dude, I just jump in the mob and just get into it. I'm like, and I've seen it before live. I'm like, this is not my thing. You know, but it's pretty neat to see.
Yeah.
You know,
it's dope.
Yeah. And then, what system are you? Xbox, PlayStation?
I've always been Xbox.
Okay.
I've always been Xbox. And for me, sports games have always been my jam. I grew up playing Madden. Somewhere around like, I don't know when, 2015, 14, I feel like Madden just went to shit. So
kind of fell off a little bit.
I can't play Madden anymore. Like I'll play a game and I'm just like, what is wrong with this gameplay? Like it's so broken. So then I got really into FIFA. Like I was hooked on FIFA and now EAFC. I kind of haven't touched that game for over a year now because I will just get way too into that. MLB The Show was my game this year. But my like original, like I remember being in 8th grade and I bought my own Xbox with my lawn mowing money and I got that Halo and I had the green Xbox Halo edition. And so I grew up playing Halo and Pokemon and things like that, but it's always been Xbox for me.
Okay. I'm a PlayStation guy. Yeah. I had an Xbox growing up too. Halo was a thing. But I kind of gravitated more towards PlayStation, you know? I just recently bought myself a Nintendo Switch 2.
Oh, nice.
And I've always wanted one because, you know, for me, the Nintendo 64, I mean, people love the Super Nintendo. I think that was revolutionary. But for me, the greatest system of all time is the N64. And I remember playing that, and Pokemon Snap was my thing, Stadium, you know, Mario. Smash Brothers when it debuted. So that was my thing right there.
I had the same. I got an N64 one year for Christmas, and it was until I bought my Xbox, I wore that thing out. And, you know, Donkey Kong, Mario Kart, Legend of Zelda. Like I was always Nintendo was at my root. I've got a Switch, but I haven't even finished the second Legend of Zelda game yet because I'll start playing and then life will happen or I'll get busy. I'll get like really good at the game. And then I'll put it down. And then by the time I pick it up again, I suck and I have to relearn everything and then I put it back down. So one day I'll beat that game.
Yeah, I haven't played PlayStation in like same thing, like a year or so.
Yeah.
I gave my TV away and then, you know, started getting really busy with coaching at the time, like union stuff and, you know, the podcast and everything. And man, and I remember when I first bought the PS5, I'm like, oh, awesome, I was playing it, but it's just kind of collecting dust now at my house. I'm like, oh, I got to get back into it. I don't know, but, you know, it's like time consuming. But, yeah, I feel you. Sometimes you just need that.
Yeah, absolutely. You just need that escape from reality to just zone out into a game and just get lost and just give yourself time to not have to think about how stressful the world is right now.
Yeah. So. Where do you kind of see yourself going from this point forward, you know, in 5 years? Is a union president like a term thing, or is it just kind of like, you know, however long they want you there?
Yeah, it's a term thing. So I get elected for 2-year terms. So this is my very first term, and in 5 years, it's tough for me to project. Last year, I was kind of having a little bit of like a conscious crisis where I was like, man, I've been here in Santa Cruz, Watsonville for 11 years now. Most of my friends and family are back home in the Central Valley. Like, do I want to go home and like try to start a family? And like, ultimately, like I really still want to be a father. I'm not a dad right now, but that's like a goal. So I would hope that in 5 years, like that's happened. But I know you can't force those things. So it's really just taking one day at a time. And as I was kind of working my way through that crisis of like, do I want to go back home and just kind of be with my family and get a little bit of a restart? I was like, man, you've worked so hard to get to this point, and you're in a position where you can get elected as president of the union. And like, I would regret forever if I would have made that choice to go back home and leave this area. So for now, I'm committed to just doing the best I can over these next 2 years. Definitely would like to run again. I do love this work. It's busy as hell, but it's really, there's something about it that just gets me really amped up. And I feel like I'm pretty good at it. So would love to get reelected and at least serve a second term, but I don't know what's next in 5 years.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, like you said, take it one day at a time.
Yeah, because at the end of the day, like, I love this area. This is where I grew up wanting to live, like, circled on my map. So for me, like, I don't know, 5 years, a union president might be like, oh, I'm gonna go be the region president, or I'm gonna be the director, and I'm gonna go to Sacramento or LA. LA has a chance of, always calling me, but I don't know.
You can wear blue freely and no one's going to say
Yeah,
anything.
exactly. But it's just hard for me to ever envision myself leaving this area because it's where I've always wanted to be. It's expensive as all hell to live here. And that's really where like the union work comes in of let's get our share, let's get a living wage, because if teachers, if classified staff, if educators can't afford to live here, it's going to be a big problem.
Yeah. I was having a conversation this week with someone, they were talking about renting and everything, and they're renting a house with a bedroom, and I forgot what we were talking about, but like, I'm like, oh, how much do you guys pay, because that's like the question that comes up when everyone's renting, right? You ask, oh, how much do you pay? And they told me, I'm like, dude, that's my entire paycheck right there. That's my entire monthly paycheck. It's like, nope, can't do it. Can't do it. And I was talking to another friend. It's like, yeah, dude, like everyone's living with their parents still, and it's just like, it's unfortunate, but yeah, you're right. That's where union comes in, and we go out there and we fight for more wages. And
well, and for us too, if any of our members are listening, we're going to be rolling out a housing survey this year in partnership with the UCSC Center for Labor and Community, so that it is actually like a science-based survey that we roll out, and it's going to be on housing and the cost of living, so that when we are at that bargaining table, we've got some data and science that shows like, look, our people's entire paycheck are going to their rent, and people can't afford to live here. This is the money you've got stashed away in the reserves. Like, this is the time to put that money on the table. But we're gonna be rolling up our sleeves and trying to get that work done, because it's bleak times right now. It's crazy how expensive it is to live here,
and people are getting raises themselves.
And
I mean, it's public knowledge. If you guys, I mean, I'm not gonna say names or anything, but there's raises that were given in the last 6 months, and teachers and classified have not gotten a raise, and
couple of years now. And what's interesting about that specific raise is that person had coaching support in their contract, where they were getting a certain dollar amount of coaching support, $15,000 of coaching. And well, now that $15,000 of coaching is just being converted into a base salary, which I feel like when we're on our end of the table, we're always told something like that is, breaking the golden rule. Like, you can't take this funding and use it to fund something that's ongoing. But when it's a position of higher power, they're fine breaking those rules for people who are making, almost $270,000 a year.
I tell people, and it could be a hot take, I don't know, but I tell people, no one position should be making more than our commander-in-chief of the United States. Think of it as you will, whatever anyone. But just say, like, dude, if $250,000 is like the base salary for the person who runs a country, no one should be making more than that. I'm just saying, because then what does that say to everything else, And again, back to it's politics,
But it's about like the people who are doing the labor and providing the value and like uplifting a community and building the Tesla car, doing the Amazon delivery, making the Starbucks like machines and the coffee and all that. Like, those people should be getting more of the wealth and profits that are being generated so that they can at least survive and be provided a living wage. Like, I know people, you know, McDonald's workers, oh, they don't deserve $20 an hour, blah, 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 and that's going to bank. But it's like, bro, that business and that corporation, how much money are they bringing in? How much money is that CEO bringing in? And what are they doing? What value are they providing to the community compared to the people actually doing the work?
Yeah.
So I'm definitely big on, like, the people doing the work should be getting paid a living wage. And, yeah, like, why do we have someone like Elon Musk making billions and trillions of dollars a year? And where's that money going back to improve society? Because it's going into their pockets.
Yeah, yeah. And especially the ones who are forming and shaping the next generation, right? Like, and I think who said it? Charles Barkley once said it. He was in an interview. He's like, oh, well, you make millions of dollars and this and this and that. It's like, man, I'm making all this money, but the ones who should be making more than me are, you know, teachers, police officers, firefighters, educators. Like, those are the real heroes. And I 100% agree. You know, we gotta, you know, all come together. So this goes out to, like, all PVFT employees. This goes out to the community. Like, yo, we got to band together and really, you know, fight for what we're worth.
Yeah.
You know? So shout out to the community, Watsonville, Santa Cruz County, all the educators out there, PVFT, union teachers, CSEA union, classified employees. You know, shout out to you guys. You guys are the backbone. So, Brandon, so we come to the kind of like the end where, you know, we've talked and people have heard, and, you know, but what is the one thing that what is your advice? What is your words of wisdom that you leave people with if you want them to remember you with what the work that you've done, or just in general? It could be whatever it may be, but what do you leave on the table for people to learn? And
it's interesting when, you know, different districts and things have these narratives that they're crafting about, you know, being kind. And for me, it's really about, like, demanding respect in a way that's professional and that we can all move forward together. But I think people need to demand their respect, and we need to realize, like I said earlier, we have so much more in common than we have against each other. And sometimes getting in these arguments and fights, it's a choice, and we can choose to talk about something else, or we can choose to find our common ground. And, okay, how can we work together to make our area of common ground a little bit better versus just trying to sit here and fight about this thing we're never going to agree on. My parents voted for Trump, and I still talk to them. I still love my parents. Like, I'm not, you know, one of those people that writes people off because of their thoughts or beliefs. And I think we all have value that we can bring to society, and the only way to unlock that value is by communicating with each other, finding common ground, and just realizing that we are all one human race.
I agree with that. I agree. We all have a lot of similarities, you know. Again, he's a Dodger fan, I'm a Giants fan, but at the end of the day, we care about the younger generation. We're educators, and we, you know, that's where we're united right there.
Yep, absolutely.
But I hope the Dodgers don't win the World Series. Just putting it out there.
It would be nice to go back to back, though.
I know. Yeah, there's something about that. Man, I have a little against the Cubs, even though they won it in 16. You know, it was the Giants. You know, if we would have beat them, we would have definitely won the World Series that year.
Yeah. But you know, that's what's so great about sports is you never know what's going to happen, and that's what brings people together. So even then, that's the common ground is we might have our differences of Giants Dodgers, but we have that common ground of a baseball fan, of loving sports, and so it's what it's all about, that common ground. For sure. I mean, I'm a big underdog story guy. Like, I respect that year, but, like, I'm always a big underdog, you know, story. So I think the underdogs right now, actually, the surprise Cinderella story is the Mariners. Yeah. You know, they just clinched for the first time, and the last time they clinched, they actually won it all. So, hey, who knows? We'll see. We could have, like, a Milwaukee-Seattle World Series. That would be really great for a lot of people. And then there'd be, you know, us Dodgers fans, Yankees fans, like, why are these? But I think the Brewers are an underdog team, which is weird to say because they have the best record in the National League, but they're still an underdog because they're not the Phillies, the Dodgers, the Padres. So the postseason that's where the compelling stories happen, and it sucks when your team gets eliminated from the playoffs, and that's why enjoy the ride while you have it. Yeah, you never know what's gonna happen. So,
Brandon, thanks again for stopping by. I appreciate your insight. I appreciate what you're doing. And so, for anyone that goes out to the board meetings, say hi to him if you're out there. Cool guy. And again, just the way you're out there, you carry yourself and you speak, it's like my spirit animal.
Thank you. And thank you to you as well for having me on this podcast. I know we touched base a while ago, and you were working with a student that I was working with, and then to hear like, oh, you're the communications chair VP for the CSEA, and seeing you do this is really awesome. And we talked a little bit before about it's easy for people on the outside to criticize, but for people who do take that step, who step to the podium to speak to the board, who step behind a microphone to start a podcast, like that's super inspiring. And so I feel like you're going to be going places with this, and you've got your union behind you, you've got your support group. So it's all about just moving forward and making things better. And that's what I feel like we're doing here. So thank you.
No, thank you. Guys, Brandon Diniz, PVFT Union President. Thanks for watching. I will catch you guys all on the next episode. God bless. See y'all.